There we go. ZKGM, everyone. Welcome to another Union Hall cast. Today, gonna vibe with one of our partners, Namada Privacy Project, and cool builders that behind the scenes we've kind of been nerding out for a while now. And Remy from Esprezzo, who's a Union fellow. And Remy, I think you guys also had like a really big announce during Con, right? You get your keynote speech and everything.
Yeah,
Feel free to introduce yourself, by the way, but also like how did it go? I'm super curious to hear like what the
yeah.
was.
No, it went well. We kind of took the veil off Flora, Flora Network, and we're super excited. Kind of a agent orchestration layer that we've been working on. And yeah, it was cool. I mean, good to be back on stage. It's been a few years since I've been up there. Super fun, full room, good feedback, good questions. It was a good week, honestly. Beyond the heat, maybe, of Con. It was a really good week, great group of people throughout the week, had good meetings. So felt like it was a super solid presentation, good day, and just a good week on the whole.
Nice. So what exactly did you unveil? Like, can you give us like the 30-second
Yeah,
field there?
yeah, for sure. So we Flora has been under wraps for a while. We've been socializing across kind of behind the scenes some of the projects we've been working with. Obviously, been talking to you guys a little bit behind the scenes, and as well as some larger investment groups. But on the whole, what we've been working on is a new protocol focused on orchestration. My co-founder and I, over the last year or so, have pretty much made a pact that if we're going to spend cycles in new product development, that it's going to be focused on AI and specifically agents. So we're building a new agent kind of orchestration and workflow tool. There'll be a couple different flavors of that that we'll be unveiling in the coming weeks. But ultimately, like a really low touch point of entry, more of a prompt style interface that will have interactions across Discord, all the way to like a kind of next gen CLI tool that has multi-model access. That would be really cool. So we're excited about that. But Flora will be kind of a base settlement layer, ideally hooking up to a bunch of other blockchains, leveraging some great technology behind the scenes and bridging technology, of course. But also just kind of really kind of cementing itself as a core player in the AI and Web3 space. We've been building a lot of automation tech for quite some time, for like several years at this point. So we're going to extend some of those interfaces, things like dispatch that we've built on the Esprezzo side, which will be some of the first kind of integrations we have for Flora. So we'll have some really fun like end-to-end automations based on-chain activity triggering agent logic, which will be really cool. So
Very
really
cool.
kind of, yeah, agent orchestration kind of from the front end all the way through CLI development.
Nice. That's very cool. Okay, before we nerd out too much, Brent, welcome on the podcast. Can you give us a quick overview of Namada as well and how the journey's been so far?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Um, so Namada is basically like at a high level a interoperable privacy protocol, kind of like basically Zcash, but with multi-chain interoperable support, and that's proof of stake, essentially. Um, we recently launched our mainnet within the last couple months, and it's been a really exciting journey. A feature that we just shipped actually earlier this week, which is kind of like unique in the space of privacy protocols, is we also developed like an incentive mechanism for essentially contributing assets to the privacy pools. Fundamentally, like this is something that should be incentivized because like you are, by using a pool and leaving assets in there at rest, you are contributing to the privacy guarantees of the pool. And this is like, in some sense, a public good that you're providing. And we figured out a way to like build into the circuits that you could basically receive some of the protocol inflation for doing so. This is pretty novel because you're receiving inflation for providing completely shielded inputs.
Okay, that will really nerd stuff me because then I imagine you need to have a sort of mechanism to figure out how long someone has been providing assets, right? Which kind of like perhaps removes some of the privacy. So I guess that's the real innovation that you guys figured out how to preserve privacy there and yet know how much you should like provide to
Yeah,
LPs.
yeah. I don't. Yeah, you don't really lose a lot of privacy by doing this kind of thing. Now, like, you know, I think there's some kind of like resolution to that. Like inflation is minted like once per day right now with the current configuration. This is like configurable by governance, like the time. And so this thing is going to sample basically probably, I think, at like once per day. You know, it's like, it's not like if I shielded my tokens like 48% of the way through the inflation period, it's going to give me 48% of like.
Oh, I get you. So basically, the moment you sample, you give it to everyone, and so you're not actually counting like for how long during the day you've been providing them.
Yeah, essentially.
Which makes sense.
Mhm.
It's super interesting, but I think two wildly different subjects we have here, like AI agents and a privacy protocol. Although normally I do think when I see like a lot of AI X Web3, right? Like people mention like maybe verifiable agents, like because you want to have like the actual like inference being done by some other party, but you want to know that they didn't like alter the outputs. And I'm wondering, like, Remy, like, do you see like a need for perhaps like AI agents to have like a certain level of privacy to it? But where do you think
Yeah.
it's going?
No, for sure. And even actually, we had a couple conversations with a few privacy protocols after the presentation as well. And I definitely think there's room for that. I think where we will spend most of our time will be these interfaces that connect the dots and make it really easy to deploy agents. But the whole thought process is a this catalog of abilities that you'll be able to kind of tag on. So if you need pure, full stop privacy, being able to lean into things, whether it be Namada, we talked to OK Contract guys, and some other things that do privacy preservation, whether it be on the transaction side or inference side. There's a lot of opportunity there. The thought process is we'll partner with the groups to lock that in as an option to kind of turn on for your agent. We are talking to some Web2 groups as well that are less kind of focused on the pure privacy piece and more rapid experimentation and iteration at this point. So definitely something, one of the pillars that we see as being like a very kind of foundational piece of the marketplace as we think about people, building agents and then adding kind of the specific needs they need within that ability set.
Yeah, because I can totally imagine that if I were to like um, interact with the chain and I know that's going to trigger an agent to do something, if I know like the model and the inputs, I could potentially like run inference myself as well to figure out
Yep.
what the actions will be. And then I can like front run what the agent is going to do, right? I can almost see that's a potential attack vector. So I think your only way to fix that is by using privacy protocols, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's definitely where I see a lot of the stuff playing in. And yeah, we're excited. I mean, obviously, Brent excited. We can definitely chat some more after this as well. But we're at that stage where we're kind of lining up the key partners for these particular categories and thinking about how we can start showcasing some of the stuff in upcoming test nets as well.
Very cool. Brent, like maybe my understanding is incorrect, but you guys have some overlap with the Anoma team as well, right? Or in the early days with the collaboration going on there with regards to privacy and interop, or am I misremembering the history?
No, you're definitely remembering, and yeah, it's been several years, and there is the overlap is, or at least probably from a communication standpoint, has historically seemed a little bit convoluted, and it's changed. So I guess here's what it is at a high level. Like, there's a company called Heliax that I work for. Heliax is incubating both the Namada project and the Anoma project. In the early days, it was just Anoma, but basically the vision for Anoma kind of grew into something quite larger than what it initially was, and it was more fluid. And with the growth and the change in the vision of what Anoma could be, which right now Anoma is at a super high level, probably slated to be like a decentralized operating system, but there became a desire to put out a more straightforward privacy solution before the full vision of Anoma was realized. And this kind of like split the team and the project into kind of two things. One, let's like build a blockchain that is interoperable, that is proof of stake, and that provides privacy similar to Zcash, right? Like very concrete idea. And then we keep developing Anoma, and at a certain point, like, you know, we launch Namada first. You know, we work on them in parallel, but the idea is that like Namada will likely be launched first, and that when Anoma goes live, like we can find several different like avenues of synergy between them. You know, they're both kind of part of this like big vision for like decentralized and privacy focused like blockchain actions at a high level, but they both at this point like do pretty different things. Yeah, and Namada is like I mentioned before, Namada is like pretty concretely just like proof of stake, interoperable privacy protocol. So, you know, there might be a vision, there might be a future where like Anoma is probably like leveraging a lot of the privacy pools that come from Namada or something for certain applications, or users of Anoma could like, you know, Anoma might be like have some kind of native connection to Namada. Yeah, I personally spend 100% of my time working on Namada, so I can't talk too much about like the nitty gritty details of Anoma. But I definitely think you guys should have an Anoma specific person on the podcast in the future.
Which I have, because like Anoma came to front of my mind because I was thinking, need like blockchain actions. How do you like make sure that like you're not writing a billion integrations for your AI agents, right? Like how do you basically get like everything integrated ASAP? And so I think like intense Anoma with then maybe indeed like a little bit of Namada flavor on top to keep these interactions private as well seems to be like a killer combination overall. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Namada and privacy. How do you, so might be like altering the subject really quickly, and this might be uncomfortable. How have you guys navigated it from like a regulatory perspective? Because for our viewers here, I'm back home in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, where not a long time ago, a Tornado Cash developer was arrested, right, for building a
Yeah.
privacy protocol. So how do you guys navigate that? How do you see it? Are you guys just basically giving the middle finger and saying no, this has to exist, or how do you deal with that?
Certainly not giving any kind of middle finger. I mean, I think it's important to stay compliant from a regulatory standpoint with all of these, with this tech that we're building. Like we have been, you know, like we've definitely been pretty conscious of like what the regulatory climate seems to be at any given time in our development process. And like through the course of developing this product, the climate of that seems to have fluctuated and changed a bit. You know, in times where it seemed riskier to launch such a project, we refrained from launching certain features that we felt like were just going to probably expose us to some sort of scrutiny. And then in times of the climate kind of like easing up, which it seems like it currently is right now, like tides are turning and privacy and blockchain is kind of becoming more of a, I don't know, an accepted kind of feature to exist.
I personally think that to me, it's like privacy is like a very much needed feature, not because we want to avoid taxes, launder money, etc., but just required to make like certain systems work. Like users suffer from so much MEV right now. Some things we cannot bring on chain because from a legal perspective, like it has to be private. So we're stuck with keeping it like in the TradFi world. So to me, at least, like the whole like anti-privacy, like fear that regulators have, it's very misplaced. Like sure, we want to like not allow illegal activities to occur, but privacy, I think, is like a human right, and you really do need it to make certain systems work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can go on and on about like you know, why privacy is good and like, and especially from well-meaning, beneficial, benevolent ways. But you know, I think one thing I should mention is like if we end up like developing, or if someone ends up developing like some kind of product or application that like ends up requiring some kind of regulatory compliance, like there are methods of our tech that like allow someone to like be compliant, you know, by giving, you know. So I guess what I'll mention is like there's several different like cryptographic keys that a owner of shielded funds has, and some of these keys allow you to spend the funds. Some of these keys allow you just to view the funds without having any spending power. You know, if a regulator needs some kind of access to, you know, to see your account history or something, a user can give a key to regulators that like allows them to read but not write, essentially, you know. Um, and then of course, like, you know, at Namada, yeah, we want to bring privacy in legal, benevolent ways, right? Like we're not here to like facilitate crime at all.
No, no, exactly. No, and I think like that's something that maybe sometimes viewers might misunderstand, because as a founder, when you say like navigating the regulatory landscape is difficult, that sounds like maybe you're doing something that you shouldn't be. But that's like definitely not the case here. It's actually like regulation being a bit behind overall and not understanding the core tech. And I love like indeed like that's exactly what you want. Like, you want to basically give your like viewing key to, let's say, the government, right? Or if they request for it for like, let's say, inspecting how much tax you need to pay. But then from like other traders, let's say, you can keep your trades fully private. I'm thinking like, Remy, like, well, I want to kind of like bring AI a little bit into this. For me at least, like privacy with AI so far, what I see is people just share literally everything with
Yeah.
AI. There seems to be no concern at all, and they will just open cloud code in their home directory and just their entire file system. They'll just share it. Uh, how do you see that? Are you saying like it's moving so fast now, like you can't afford to care about it yet, or are you thinking indeed like this is going to become much more important quite quickly?
I think it's going to be really important. I mean, obviously, like even for us, like we have a walled garden of the Google Gemini tool that I have the team use whenever they're just iterating through content or product messaging and that type of stuff. I mean, obviously, if you're using that in the more of the open space, that becomes part of the model, and may not pull the literal word for word definition, but it gets in there. So I think like at a larger scale, as you're building applications and writing code, obviously we're seeing general AI sample a bunch of stuff it probably shouldn't be sampling right now regularly. And so I think privacy in terms of where the models are pulling from is really important. And then also giving the ability to the user to pick the models they want, right? Like if they want to run a local version of a lightweight or a mini version of a LLM, go for 100%. One of the things we're really also focused on is almost like have an open router style experience behind the scenes. So you get to pick which LLM. We're not going to force people to use, Anthropic or Gemini or whatever it may be. You could use open source versions. You could use your own version in the end of the day, and or we could use some of the larger models. It's totally up to the end user. And obviously, there comes some realities with that. If you're using the larger open models in a public way, there's privacy concern there. Ideally, we call that out in a very explicit way. But yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. We're starting a little series, like a little quick video series with founders about how they are interacting with AI, where they see it going, and what that looks like right now. And we're super excited about that. But just to like really get a pulse, because everyone's at very different spots with AI. We found over the last couple months as I've been talking with more teams. And I think it'll be really interesting to kind of see where the general consensus is there. But I do think, yeah, having some sort of control over which models you're accessing, if they're fully public, if they're feeding, larger LLMs, you need to be very much aware of that, because it does feel quite open right now for most people that I talk to.
Yeah, I'm wondering indeed, like if we're going to see perhaps at some point even certain attack vectors, right? Like if I'm using Flora, I've hooked up my private data, will I maybe see someone send me an ERC20 transfer with like a memo where they can do a prompt injection, or what creative things they might figure out. I myself, like right now, I use a bunch of local AI mainly,
Mhm.
and then I'm a cloud code maxi for
Yeah.
just doing some vibe coding on the side. And I've
Yeah.
noticed least for me personally, because I've been in crypto since forever, it feels like.
Yeah.
On chain, very focused on my privacy, and
Mm-hmm.
AI was good enough to make me kind of forget the risks associated with it. And so at some point, I was kind of sitting there and thinking, actually, right, like
Yeah.
if Topic wanted to become a bad actor, they totally could.
Totally.
So right
It
now,
is where the guardrails do just drop, and you just keep going. I feel like you get in this rhythm where you just keep feeding it more.
It's almost as addictive as crypto, I would say, right? Like with crypto
Yeah.
too, I keep like buying more, putting in more
Sure.
over time, and with AI too,
Yeah.
like I keep committing more to it.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. But no, I think you're right, and we're definitely on the same side, on the Claude side. That's where we spend most of our time. And yeah, we're building a kind of interesting CLI so you don't get locked in with Anthropic is the thought process. You have options in terms of the back end. So that'll be very fun when we get a little bit further with that tool.
Nice. With regards to like Web3 agents and the stuff that you guys are building, so I know we had like these like meme coins, right, backed by an agent. I always wonder like how much actually is an agent behind the scene. Like sometimes I see these like
Yeah,
agentic accounts tweet, and I'm like, this is literally just the guy
it's
who runs
an
the account who
API.
took like
Yeah,
money sponsorship.
yeah.
How do you want to like change it? How do you see it differently? Like,
Yeah, no, that is super interesting. And coming, I guess, like we built Dispatch, Esprezzo Dispatch several years ago at this point, which was pretty much anything that happened on chain could become a trigger, and then you can have an output action to any third-party program. We did get a lot of requests to add like specific logic, if specific threshold or pricing or criteria was met. We're seeing a lot of agents like do that, but I mean, I don't know if you remember like the Furrow combo days or like the gelato, like original gelato days, like all these things existed. So like I guess you could be hooking that into an LLM for a slightly better ease of use. But in terms of like where we see agents going, I think it'll be more sophisticated. The other thing too is like when we think of agents, it's not exclusively Web3. We look at Flora as more of like a back-end rail. So if you want to go touch Web3 or you want to go transact value, that can all happen natively within the ecosystem. But if you want to have like a Web2 agent and use the tools, mostly in a traditional fashion, you 100% can. So we want to kind of blur that line a little bit to start capturing a wider audience as well. So a lot of the tools we have will be really accessible. And try to abstract a lot of the stuff away to behind the scenes. But if you want to go full on Web3 with privacy, full encryption, using bridging tech to connect multiple chains, that type of thing, ideally that's all within the marketplace, so you can activate those features as necessary. But yeah, I'd say like in terms of the agents, I mean, we're even talking about early on showcasing like our DevOps agents in the marketplace, which are very totally different, right? So like those are agents so we run a whole compute stack. We have a data center up in California, and we rack up there. And the whole thought process, instead of having our DevOps team 24/7 monitor this thing, we start putting agents there. We have new code generating agents, error handling agents, then a top level agent that all these will feed into and provide us summaries like on a daily basis. And these things have increased our capacity from an engineering standpoint substantially. Mm-hmm. And when we talk to most teams, they're not quite there with it. So it's like, how do we make those type of things even more accessible through Flora? And having that marketplace of like just engineering style agents for not even for hire, but templates that you could leverage. And so I think the array of agents within Flora will be quite vast. And then we'll have some other so through Dispatch we'll show more of the on-chain style agents where you can listen to specific activity, maybe a smart contract event or function that can feed a specific agent activity and use flow that can then be picked up by Flora. As well. So we'll showcase a few different things early on, but it is going to be a blend of like Web 2 use cases as well as like deeper Web 3 use cases.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I remember it was like the hype around like stablecoin rails, payment rails, Bridge.xyz acquisition is that a lot of folks were saying like it's the perfect combo for agents, right? It's like you want to like allow agents loads of integrations, and it's going to be easier with like Web3 tech to give agents a wide access to a shit ton of protocols. Have you, like as a founder now who's building a ton of agents, do you agree with it? Do you think like indeed like for a lot of stuff doing the Web3 integration is like easier, we're doing it faster, or is actually like Web3 tech maybe like harder to integrate?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, obviously, if you needed just like a pure payment, you wanted to hook up like a Stripe checkout, API, relatively simple. But if it gets complex and you're doing more sophisticated trades, yeah, there is some logic that needs to be put in. But I think in the end of the day, like I mean, obviously, we see this huge wave of stablecoin momentum coming across, large banks all the way through DeFi. I think it's very clear that stablecoins are going to be the backbone of value transfer for the next generation of the internet. And so for us to have pretty much like a base layer in a rail that allows agents to transact is 100% table stakes. Like that has to be there. And that's something we're excited about. We're starting to talk to a lot of the stablecoin teams directly and exploring what that looks like. And so I do think that's going to be, I think, yeah, right now, like, is the tech 100% perfect? No, but is a lot of it there to start enabling really interesting use cases? 100%. And I think it's only going to get better. And I think this influx of value and momentum coming in from the banks is going to accelerate a lot of things. Obviously, a lot of new stablecoin projects coming out. I think that's the hard part right now is like which ones are going to withstand the test of time and become like, I mean, obviously we have the circles and tethers of the world, but there's a lot more coming online and getting significant funding. So it's going to be really interesting to see that space take shape. But I think that's going to be a critical backbone for a lot of agent value transfer.
Makes sense. Brent, is this something that like you guys are looking at with Namada, kind of getting in on indeed like stable coin payments? I know that, I mean, like I saw even people talk about like micro payments, right? Like agents interact with your server, with your protocol, and they pay like half a cent for making that MCP call. I can kind of imagine that like privacy actually here would be quite important, because otherwise I would just track an agent's wallet and I would just know like this is exactly what you're up to. So I feel like there seems to be like potentially some overlap. Is like Namada capable of doing that? Because I know like the privacy portion obviously requires much more cryptography, right? Like you guys like have to do a whole bunch of work to keep the pool shielded, etc. Like, is the tech ready yet to, let's say, like make micropayments private, or is it maybe like the next like horizon that we need to reach with this type of technology?
Yeah, I mean, Namada is really well suited for this. I mean, like from a technical level, I think like supporting payments of all sizes, especially like micropayments, I mean, is probably like the lowest hurdle for us. Like in terms of like getting reach as like a payments solution, it's really kind of like a marketing / interfaces and like product design problem for the most part. Like the tech is there, with there for there are certainly some like kind of like UX trade-offs, like between doing things transparently and privately. Doing things privately requires a little bit more compute, probably some more, probably like higher transaction fees, and able to support a system. But like doing something like this, especially if supporting payments between agents is something that's desirable, then like, yeah, Namada, basically the shielded pool that is built by Namada is perfectly well equipped. And like, we definitely envision trying to do something like this by like, I guess what I want to say is like, to first order with what we have now, like we would have to have, like agents would basically have to have accounts essentially. But the easiest thing would be for them to like have accounts at rest on Namada, right? And then to be able to like interoperate and maybe do the transactions within Namada and then unshield and bridge things back to where they are. But one thing that we kind of envision as part of our longer term roadmap is putting different instances of shielded pools on different chains. And we've kind of like thought of this idea. We branded it as so-called shielded outposts. But like we've thought about like implementing the shielded pool in a smart contract and then creating these like kind of fragmented shielded pools in different places, such to reduce the latency of transacting, right? So like, maybe let's say if it takes too many bridge hops for you to get into Namada, such that, I don't know, you're spending too many fees or you're waiting too much time in order for transactions to process. Perhaps there's like another local instance of a shielded pool hosted on a smart contract somewhere that's closer to the agents or to you, that you could interact with more immediately. You know, and if such an idea, like if I think if we once we successfully implement this thing, then like I don't think it takes a lot to basically achieve the privacy guarantees that like the larger pool. And granted, I'm assuming here that the larger pool might be on Namada. Like it's totally possible that a larger pool could turn out to be some smart contract on Solana or something, like let's say randomly. But yeah, like high level, I think there's like lots of ways that we can leverage the tech that we've built to provide privacy as easily as possible to these kinds of like agents, users, features, kind of wherever they are.
So then I guess the only thing we'd really need to solve for is like, how do I indeed give the agent access to like my private keys, my Namada account, and doing that in a secure way, right? Like, and of course, like, look at you, Remy, like you might correct me on my like coding knowledge around AI architectures, but I guess you could have like your own MCP server locally that like
Correct.
access your wallet and calls into that. But I'm assuming with Flora, like the whole advantage is like I might set up triggers and my own computer might be offline, right? And you
Right.
guys on cloud architecture, whatever, will execute the agents and trigger these types of flows. So then I guess it becomes a little bit more difficult. Like, how do I ensure the agents can do certain payments, but at the same time, kind of ties into privacy, right? And ensure that I don't give my wallet info to OpenAI.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, that there's a lot of variables to take into consideration when you start thinking about the different either models people can run either locally or through the cloud or through different compute layers. So yeah, no, it's definitely we'll be iterating a lot to see which kind of architecture makes the most sense for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about this, but like I wonder if it would be interesting to like run some of these operations like in a T.
Yep, we have explored that a little bit. Carol, if you want to go, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like that could work. The only issue I see so far with my experimentation with AI is the paid models are just a lot better than the
Mhm.
open source ones, especially with like Cloud 4 and stuff.
Yeah,
Like what I'm seeing is like I feel
substantially
like at some
different.
point with like Facebook releasing Olama, like open source
Yep,
models, like they all got really
catch up.
close. And
Yeah,
now the distance has increased a lot where for I think really sophisticated stuff you want the paid
the
ones.
best. Yeah.
Maybe like something that really excites me is like ZK-TLS, where like you can generate the
Mhm.
ZKP of like an HTTPS response. So basically, as long as you have like access to an API, you can prove like indeed API.openai.com returned like this response. So that also might be a way where you could, I guess, have a system where you don't actually need to give these providers access to your credentials, as long as you can prove like indeed they run a model on this input and it says to do this. You have one like ZKP of that. Then in a smart contract, you could of course verify that, right?
Right.
And set up.
No, that's an interesting approach for sure.
Yeah, the only thing is indeed like might be like overly complex, right?
Yeah,
Might be like a lot of moving parts, and still it's like kind of hard to get a model to do exactly the output you want,
right.
right?
That's
Like,
exactly. It's very, yeah. You have to beat it into shape in a way.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. Through you prompted 1,000 times, like no,
Yeah.
only in this form, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but at least like for me, it would almost be the ideal future. Like, not sure if you're bullish on open source models again. I mean, if you think like they're going to make a massive comeback, but I see now with like Meta trying to go for their super intelligence and internally saying we're not investing more in the like open source
Open
models.
source. Yeah.
I think really the only part that can save is like Nvidia with maybe like them doing like an at-home inference machine and providing
Yeah.
like
Right.
models for that. But I don't see any other company that might like push it forward at the moment.
Yeah. Obviously, like when DeepSeek came out, everyone freaked out. I mean, we were playing with that for a week or so before it, hit the mainstream media. But I think like obviously there's a place for that, and I think it's super interesting. But yeah, compared to the top models right now, there is a massive gap, and it does seem to be accelerating and widening. So yeah, my co-founder is always chasing the best model. So it does feel like some of the open source stuff has fallen behind. But for the other thing is, for particular use cases, the open source stuff works fine. So it just depends what you're trying to accomplish. But if you're writing a lot of code or like generating new apps and that type of stuff, you're most likely going to want to use the bigger models for that, especially at the pace they're innovating, the pace they're releasing. The speed of all this is genuinely crazy. Obviously crypto moves fast, but geez, AI is racing. So super interesting. And yeah, it's gonna be an interesting world out there in a handful of years.
Exactly. Yeah. I use some of the local models for some very dumb tasks. I got my little prompt to figure out if Nancy Pelosi did any new trades. Download the latest PDF from discourse.disclosure,
Nice.
the website, and then like have it parse the PDF to look if I need to open any new trades or not. So for those like little like automation tasks, I'm not gonna bother really writing like a full on like proper script to do this, but quickly have it done by that. I think it works really well.
Totally, 100%.
Yeah. So I think that we really covered we went into like a little bit intersection of like privacy and AI overall. For me, like to be honest, like good feeling, guys. Like it still feels a little bit far away because I'm thinking like AI moves so quickly that the moment we pin down what we actually need, the horizon is going to be moved again overall. But I am like very bullish overall on seeing indeed like privacy as a whole in crypto improve massively. I've spoken with a bunch of teams on like they're not being proper, or at least like their use case being completely blocked by MEV or potentially parts being able to see what's going on. Are there like perhaps like other intersections where you guys think that's actually what I'm like extremely excited about? So maybe not purely privacy in Web3, but maybe indeed like the privacy portion outside of it. Can we use Namada's tech actually, if besides pure like Web3 asset shielding, to a more broader way to protect privacy? This might be a bit of a rant. I'm sorry for that, Brent, but I'm just wondering.
No. I think it's interesting. Like ultimately, I think you can use Namada to like. I think there's going to have to be some Web3 component, right? Like fundamentally, this is a. It's possible there are other people who have better answers than I do, but like, at least to facilitate like private payments for like the only thing I could think of is like private payments for kind of Web2 tech. I know there are some projects that offer like decentralized VPN services. I think it's like very ethos aligned for us to try to work with them, or for them to try to integrate with us to support private payments for such a thing. Because these are people who are privacy minded, buying a product that is supposed to be giving them some kind of browsing privacy, but they're currently paying for it completely transparently. Seems like a kind of pretty massive leak of data that is counterproductive to what you're trying to do. I don't know. I'm curious if you guys have.
I kind of love the answer of just saying like no, like it's for Web3 tech, right? Sometimes like we try to make something like have 100 different use cases, but I'm a crypto maximalist, right? I actually think like just like doing a really good Web3 use case or crypto use case and just going all in on that. I kind of love that. And to me, like I do all my payments in stables, to be honest. Like there's only a couple of things in real life that I still need to actually use regular fiat for, but I always try to like get as much on chain as I possibly can. So I would actually say like maybe there's no need for Namada to broaden out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Namada is definitely pretty Web3 focused, but like I think maybe the more Web2, maybe the more relevant thing is like thinking about, I think there's a lot of space outside of Web3 to probably use zero knowledge proofs. That's like really the tech that's kind of like probably universal and certainly not constrained to like only have applications in crypto or in Web3, right?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I was here in Amsterdam. So with Union, we do some consulting for the Dutch National Bank. They do some design on like Euro stables, how that interplays, and we do a bit of advising on potentially leveraging ZKPs to do AML. A big issue they have, of course, is if you want to do AML, you kind of get that like 10 companies need to have all data for everyone, right? And they're just sitting on these troves of personal data that gets hacked. And that's actually not what these companies in between want, right? Ideally, like you kind of have a system where one time you generate a ZKP of a user, right, to verify indeed like they qualify. And then ideally these companies just share and aggregate these ZKPs amongst each other, right? And so they just go like in the middle layer, they just go, I don't know why this user is compliant. All I know is they are 100% compliant.
It's like quick verification. Like,
yeah, and they just keep like verifying on, and at some point you go have 100 users, are all of them compliant? You aggregate those 100 ZKPs into like a batch, right? You get like further privacy, and that way at least solves like a real issue. Because right now, these companies pay like an insane amount of money to make sure that they protect the private data, right? Because in Europe with like GDPR, you have to be like really careful when you hold any personal identifiable data. So it's a bit of a market opportunity as well. So we're exploring with the union to see like, hey, can we indeed play a role in like it's still like Web3 because it's stable coins, it's blockchain tech, but it's used in a way more institutional, almost like nation state kind of use case, and try to do it immediately, like in a proper way that we increase privacy. And it's good to hear that they're actually very open to integrating this.
Yeah.
I sometimes think like governance are like evil guys who want like all of your data, right? And they actually don't. They just don't see other ways around it. You kind of have to educate them a bit on the tech.
Yeah, I mean, look, in my opinion, governments and larger institutions with more bureaucratic bloat, like it's only natural to expect that the like waves of new tech is going to hit them later than it does for us. It's kind of on us to maybe implement the right things in our space and demonstrate value here and demonstrate it clearly and in a user-friendly way to show how like this tech can also be useful beyond our kind of sphere of influence and in more traditional sectors, and to educate, these people who know nothing about this stuff. So yeah, like I think doing a project like Namada well and right in crypto can have like ripple effects for the adoption of like ZKPs in traditional finance or in more traditional regulatory environments that maybe don't involve blockchain, but that just involve like private, reliable, quick verification of any kind of data, truly.
Yeah, I feel like if stables have been like the first to like reach mass awareness in the government level on a global scale, this other technology is going to follow suit. There's no doubt. It just, I think you guys are. It takes a minute.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, we're almost at the end of the session, guys. So, Remy, maybe if you give us some alpha on the latest AI stuff, like you and your team are like right at the forefront of it. Like, what do I need to check out right after this call? What's gonna tickle my?
I mean, we're definitely Claude Maxi, so we're right there with you. I mean, you're already looking at the right stuff. We're I think the biggest thing that we're excited about is like starting to integrate AI in kind of different pockets that feel more natural, that don't feel like you have to go prompt. I think one of the things we believe is that prompting isn't going to be the end game interface. And so we're experimenting different ways to integrate, models and different things into just more natural areas. And so we're going to be exploring some of that through some of our community sooner than later. So we're pretty excited. But in terms of like net new stuff, it sounds like you're in this, you're playing with the things we're playing with. So it's all out there. Some of the new CLI stuff will be really interesting. But on the whole, it's, it's all moving real quick. I need to go start playing. I haven't checked out the new Grok stuff yet. I need to go play with that stuff.
Yeah, maybe I need to grab myself an AI EKGF.
There you go.
And Brent's like, and I guess like a mainnet now and actually like doing very well. But what's like the next thing I need to look out for Namada? Like, what's the big thing? Is it going to be the outposts? That's the next big product development, or?
Honestly, before outposts, it will be kind of like, I think we're entering the era of multi-chain expansion. So, currently we're only connected to IBC. This is like how the project started. We had native IBC support. Now is the push to get into like EVM and SVM land. And there's going to be a couple approaches that we're taking. I would guess that our first successful foray into EVM world will be through IBC Eureka, which is like the newly launched version of IBC that basically connects to Ethereum via the Cosmos hub. We're just doing some final testing to make sure that our protocol is compatible with that. And then, we're also in parallel looking into bridging solutions like Union, Wormhole, Layer 0, whatnot. In terms of what that ends up ultimately looking like, it's TBD. But yeah, I think once we just have these connections into these larger ecosystems, we're going to start developing basically like applications, either developing applications or integrating with other applications to provide privacy. So like our ultimate goal is to not necessarily build all these applications ourselves, but like we think of Namada as a composable privacy layer that other projects can leverage. Probably the first kinds of products you're going to see are private swapping and shielded swapping. Like we're probably pretty soon going to roll out one natively in IBC with Osmosis, which is like the primary DEX for IBC. There will be like shielded swapping supported by Namada under the hood from both our platform and possibly from Osmosis's platform. But yeah, we're basically look out for integrating a privacy layer into DeFi protocols across chains.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm bullish on the union integration here, and I think a big chance that we're going to see it. And otherwise, still good to see you guys using IBC Eureka, which is also originally the Union Tech and Light clients now on the hub. So either way, you'll be using our tech under the hood. So that's something that makes me very happy.
Really excited to become more involved in the Union ecosystem and use your guys' tech.
Very, very cool to hear. All right, guys, I'm going to end this meeting because we're running out of time. Thank you so much for coming on and educating me both on privacy and on the latest AI stuff. Remy, so much success wishes for you now that you've like officially announced Flora, and I'm sure like your DMs literally filled up with people hyped by it. So, once you guys like release the CLI stuff and some of the early products, like hit me up on the mark with it.
Definitely will do. We do have getting ready for a DevNet, so we'll start getting the tech out there pretty soon.
Nice. And Brent, I'm gonna hop into my wallet next and start LPing some on Namada, providing some security in exchange for those rewards.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much.
All right. Thanks, Carol.
For having
Have
me.
a good week.
All right.
Cheers,
See you
everyone.
guys. Bye.